Now, let's talk about what actually fiscal policy is. So, fiscal policy is the use of government spending and tax policy to influence the path of the economy over time. So, what's going to happen here is we have aggregate demand and aggregate supply. We have what's going on in the macroeconomy. And so, with that, the government's looking at this and they're like, okay, what's going on? Do we have an inflationary gap? Do we have a recessionary gap? What is happening? Right? So refer back to Keynesian economics, right? And that said that aggregate demand, right? So consumers and businesses are not enough in order for an economy to get out of a recession. Remember, we talked about how consumers are like, it's a bad time. I don't want to spend money right now. And so because they don't want to spend money, they never get enough spending, enough aggregate demand to get out of the recession. So that's where Keynesian said, or that's where Dr. Keynes said, we have to increase aggregate demand by increasing spending, or we're going to have to change taxes. Mainly, he was focused on government spending. That's really what he was saying. He, in fact, said, put the spending somewhere. Build a statue, build a park, build something. Stash money somewhere in society, right? Just get government spending happening. That's what Dr. Keynes said. But basically what happened is that, we would look at, okay, there's a recessionary gap, the government needs to step in and do something. If we have an inflationary gap, same deal, the government needs to step in and do something. So we have those two policies here, expansionary or contractionary fiscal policy. So expansionary fiscal policy is where we're trying to increase aggregate demand. Think of expansionary as something getting bigger, and that's what we want aggregate demand to do. We want it to get bigger, expand. Okay, so we do this by increasing government spending or cutting taxes. So the reason this works is because aggregate demand, remember, is C plus I plus G plus NX. Okay, and so when government spending goes up, aggregate demand has to increase. But I don't see taxes here, right? So taxes is the interesting part. Because when we have, let's say, a decrease or a cut in taxes, okay, what's the next thing that changes? Well, taxes go down, consumers have higher incomes, right? So basically taxes go down, disposable income goes up. So because you have more income, you are going to consume more, so therefore aggregate demand increases. So that's what expansionary fiscal policy is either government spending up or taxes go down. And that's the flow there. All right, if you understand that, guess what contractionary is? We're going to flip it around. Okay, government spending is going to go down and taxes are going to go up. That's what contractionary policy, fiscal policy is. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to decrease the level of aggregate demand. So we need to do less spending, or we need to increase taxes. And that's contractionary fiscal policy. So here's how it goes. The government's looking at the macroeconomy, and they notice a recessionary gap, right? We have Y star. Remember, this is where you currently are. And then we have YF. This is where your potential is. And so right now you are below your potential. So this is a recessionary gap. And so because this is a recessionary gap, you need to do more spending or less taxes. So you will do expansionary fiscal policy. Which means more government spending or taxes go down. So therefore, if we do this, aggregate demand will be increasing. So we're going to shift this to the right. Okay? And that's how expansionary fiscal policy happens. Now, this is your new equilibrium. We are now at our potential GDP. Good job, government, right? You have increased aggregate demand right back to where it needs to go, the potential. Okay? So that's the whole goal of the expansionary fiscal policy, is to get us to the potential GDP. And we can do that through the government spending or decreasing taxes. All we're doing is expanding the aggregate demand because of a recessionary gap. If we have a inflationary gap, right, such as Y star being more than your potential, this causes the inflationary gap. So what happens here is you are already spending too much money. You are already buying too much stuff, and you're causing inflation. So it wouldn't make sense to spend more money. In fact, you would want to do less spending. So we would need to do less spending. And how we can decrease the consumption is we can just increase taxes, right? If I put more taxes on, that's going to decrease the income, and that's going to decrease consumption, and all of this will decrease aggregate demand. This whole process here is called contractionary fiscal policy. Because you're doing less spending or you're doing more taxes. All right, so by doing that, you're going to decrease the aggregate demand right back to your potential GDP. So what happens here is the government is looking at the inflationary gap, and they're like, okay, we need to decrease the GDP by this amount. Okay, remember the multiplier effect? So we need to figure out, okay, well, how much spending needs to change in order to change GDP by this amount. Okay, so that's what the government's doing. Okay, they're constantly doing data analysis to figure out, okay, how much spending do we need to do? How much spending do we need to cut? Okay, so that is a contractionary fiscal policy. In the next one, we'll talk about automatic stabilizers. I'll see you there.